What is up, guys? We are live, and as usual, I am late. Dr. Pinesett here, the study doc, and I apologize for being late. As you guys can see, I'm still in scrubs. I just came back from the hospital, and of course, they know I want to be on here with you guys teaching, educating, informing, and they want to hold me later, make me go do a code blue in the IR suite. It was terrible. But what's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. We're talking about med school interview, and this whole month, the month of now December, starting tomorrow, December 1st. Pay that rent tomorrow, y'all. We're going to be talking about the med school interview as we get deep into medical school interview season here. This is an abnormal cycle. Interview is different. So we're going to be talking about tips, tricks, strategies, all these things you can do to maximize your chance of getting in from your interview, including how to handle virtual interviews, how to handle the Casper, and these newfangled interview things we got going on. So let me erase this here. Okay. Armand, what up? I see you. I see you, Erica. What up? Yeah, paying rent tonight. Pay it on time, y'all. Your credit matters. So, the med school interview. The way I thought we'd start this series, is everybody excited to hear about the interview? Has it been on your mind? Have you been wondering? You guys are applying the cycle. And hopefully, many of you guys are not applying the cycle, so we can talk about it in advance and you can prepare yourself adequately even more to do great during your application cycle. So like I said, we're going to do this series on interviews. I have my notes right here because what I want to make sure I'm bringing you guys every time is high yield information. I want to maximize the value to you guys for showing up, making sure you guys are learning. So in order to understand what your chances are, which is what we're covering today, we're talking about your chances of getting in when you get a med school interview invite. In addition to talking about what your chances are, I'm going to break down to you guys my interview cycle, my application cycle, how interviews went, right? How I handled interview invites, and kind of how everything shook out so you guys can see a real life example of how interviews happen and what's going down. So we're going to break that down today too. So lots of good stuff today. Hang out with me. The first thing I want to say is if we want to figure out what our chances are coming from a medical school interview, we have to understand what the function, what the purpose, what the goal is of inviting you for an interview. With everything in your guys' careers, you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again. Nothing should ever be done without purpose. And nothing should ever be done without knowing what the purpose is, right? So if someone else is scheduling something for you, you should know what the purpose of that is. And when it comes to medical interviews, medical schools schedule these for a reason, guys. Medical interviews are expensive. They take them time, cost them time. They cost them resources. So they only do it because it serves a huge function. What would you say the function, the purpose of an interview is? And my interview course students are not allowed to answer because you guys know this, because you guys have been through the full course. If you guys don't know, I have an amazing med school interview course, but you guys are not allowed to answer. Let's let the other people answer and see what it is. Let's get some answers going here. Do you guys hear that? I think a fire is going off in my house right now. What is the function of the med school interview? Yes, we are live. Don't ask if we are live. We are live, action, y'all. Live. Maria says people skills. Almost. Night Shock says get to know you in what way? Right? Ariana says Ariana Carey, Mariah Grande. You got all the singers matching your name there. Right? The purpose of the interview, guys, if they invite you, they think your app is top notch. They think your app is acceptable. They think your application stands out. They think you're an amazing candidate. They love to have the application version of you. But what med schools understand is that oftentimes the paper does not match the real thing. And med schools are not in the habit of getting catfished. You hear me? Hear me now? So the purpose of an interview is to make sure you are not catfishing a medical school. How many of you guys remember that show? I think it still might be on. I saw it like pop up on my screen. I'm like, this replays? How can people still watch? How in 2020 are you still getting catfished? If you get catfished in 2020, that's a you problem. You want to get catfished. You think you're dating, you know what I mean, some model. You think you're dating, I don't know, who's the current day models? I don't even know. You think you and Hailey Bieber are married. You're not married to her. She's married to Justin Bieber. She don't want you, right? You guys are being catfished out here. So medical schools want to make sure that you haven't had someone put together this amazing application, talk about you, write these amazing things, and then the real person shows up, and instead of being a hot 20-something-year-old girl, you're a 50-year-old man. That's what they want to make sure doesn't happen, right? That's reasonable. They're gonna spend 4 years developing you. You're gonna take up a valuable slot, right? There's thousands of students who apply, and only 100 get in. They want to make sure those 100 really are the real deal. They don't want you to show up on first day, right? Get your white coat and you're a slouch, right? You're a slacker and you're a person who is not going to succeed and is not going to do well in their medical school. So they don't want to get catfished. They want to make sure you are who you are. So understanding that, right? As you go into your interview, and I want you guys to remember this as a thread through all the sessions we're going to talk about in this interview series, the key then is all you have to do is be you. You hear that all the time. But not just any old you, your best you. And we're going to talk about ways throughout this series that you can be your best you and little nuances for bringing out that best you in you. But we have to understand, if you get an interview invite, that means you're acceptable, that means you're amazing, that means you're great. Back it up. Be the same person you were on paper in person. If you can do that, your chances of getting in are outstanding. If you receive an interview invite, depending on the school, your chances of getting in are between 30% and 75%. So I 75% at some schools. The reason for this is that schools, they may get thousands of applications in the range of between 5 and 15,000 applications. But when it comes to interview invites, schools tend to invite right around 3 to 4 to even 5, depending on the school, times as many people as they need for their class. So as an example, if I'm a school and I need 100 students, I may invite 500 students to interview. I invite 500 knowing that of those 500, maybe 400 accept our interview invite. Maybe 350 actually show up. It's like a wedding, right? How many guys I got married and we sent all these invitations knowing that half of them, people weren't going to come. But we sent them to be nice, right? We sent them to make sure that we could meet, right? To get down to that number that we wanted to get to. So medical schools do that same thing. They oversend knowing that a lot of people aren't going to actually make it to the interview. There's going to be some a hang up and all these kind of things. And the number's going to drop. So 500 go out, maybe 400 say yes, maybe 350 show up. Of those 350 people they interview, they need 100. But they know that the 100 they accept are also going to be accepted to other schools. So they have to over-accept above that number. So let's say 350 interview, they need 100 in the class. Maybe they admit 250 students. Meaning, out of that group of students who are admitted, the bulk of them are accepted to the medical school. Does that make sense to everybody? The numbers, do you guys see what I'm saying there? Right? Thousands and thousands of applicants into a small number of students who get interviewed. So the jump there, right, that gap between getting a secondary and getting an interview invite is huge. Once you get that interview invite, they're telling you, no, we like you. We like what we see in you. We want to spend time getting to know you. We want to spend money getting to know you. We want to wine and dine you. Come on, have a dinner on us. That's what they're saying. And then you get there, and they're just trying to say, okay, who's the best of the best here? And out of these couple, who are we keeping? So it's a huge, huge opportunity, 30 to 75%, depending on the school, right? And the less popular the school, right? The less metropolitan the school, the greater your chances are going to be, because students may pick other schools that have bigger names or are in more desirable locations, depending on whatever is desirous to you. I guess on that topic, I've talked before about this in choosing a medical school, right? And factors in choosing medical school. I have a video on my YouTube channel. I'll put the link up here after we're live, but I'll put it in the description box below. But if you guys were to watch that video, one of the things I talk about is location for choosing a medical school. Why would location matter in choosing a medical school? Why do you guys think, right? And it's not what you think, right? You might say, oh, big cities like the best. Why would it be better maybe to pick a more rural medical school? Why would that benefit you in some way? Yeah, Armand, they over-admit, right? And that makes sense because most people who are great candidates, they're great candidates elsewhere. So they get 5, 6, maybe even 10 acceptances, and they pick one school. So they have to over-admit to account for that, right? It's like being on these dating apps, right? You guys got to be talking to multiple people because you know they're talking to multiple people, and so you might not be the selection. You might not have a date on Friday if you don't play your cards right and fraternize. Mike was on coach this weekend with no shirt on. I know he's ready. Got his Tinder dating account going. You ready? You ready? There we go. Fayez got it correct. It's not. It's the lower cost of living. And actually, for me, if you guys know, I went to Stanford Medical School. But one of the schools I wish I'd given more strong consideration to are two. One was UC Davis, because it's a great school and it has lower cost of living in Sacramento. But then also Duke in North Carolina. Man, do you know how expensive it is to live in Palo Alto? I paid $1 bajillion. I don't know if you guys can hear my kids going crazy. downstairs. I don't know what is happening in my household right now. I come from work and then I get home. I get no respect. Nobody has respect for this learning. This learning is happening right here. But if you can keep your cost of living down, you guys know that it's financial issues are problematic. And the lower you can have in terms of your loan burden, right, your student debt, the better you are, the more flexibility you have in choosing a career, especially if you want to go into primary care. It leaves tons of options for you. So make sure you guys are selective and you think about that when you guys consider your medical school. And check out that video on med school selection. But back to this, right? So schools that are in more desirable locations and schools that have a bigger name are going to be able to admit less over the number of students they actually want to get to accept their students. So it's really, really high. A general rule of thumb, is everybody listening? Write this down. This is important. Is that if you interview at 3 schools, you will get 1 acceptance. That's a general rule of thumb. Now, my students, what have you heard me say? If you get 3 interview invites, you should be getting what? 3 acceptances. Because if you're prepared for the interview, if you know what you're doing, and you deliver that person on paper and you connect with your interviewer, and I'm going to be talking about that in this series, how to make those connections, then what's the problem? Why wouldn't they admit you? If you don't put your foot in your mouth, if you don't show up and do the things I'm going to tell you guys in these upcoming videos not to do, then why wouldn't a school want you? So it should be 3 for 3. But for most people, the general rule of thumb is 3 interview invites gives you 1 acceptance, okay? Knowing this, right? Can you guys, people who've had interview invites, can you guys breathe a sigh of relief? Why do people keep asking for live? Yes, we're live, characters. If you are here and you are live with me right now, like this video. Even if you're not live, you watch this on the replay. Like this video right now if you guys understand what I'm saying about your chances of getting in. The chances when you apply to getting an interview invite are small. Small. It's a long odds to go from application to interview invite. As an example, a school like Stanford gets in the realm of 8,000, 9,000 applications. They send about 500 interview invites. So you can see that's a huge drop off, right? It's like 10%, even less than 10% get an interview invite. But then of those getting an interview invite, you're looking at 30 to 50% of those invited for interview get acceptances. So it's a big, big difference in between getting an interview and then turning that interview into acceptance. So if you get an interview, be confident, guys. And that's where we're going to start in this series of you guys getting there is you should be confident and feel good and feel great. If you get an interview invite, man, you're in the biz. You're ready to go. It's just a matter of you being prepared and you delivering on interview day. And we're going to talk about strategies for that in future videos. I mentioned I'm going to break down my interview cycle. Who wants to hear about my interview cycle and kind of how it went, how many schools I interviewed at, how it went, how I maneuvered that process, and how I selected ultimately my school? Who wants to hear about it? Thank you guys for just hopping on. Like I said, we are live action. We'll be live here on Mondays, 5 p.m. every single Monday. And every single Wednesday, we'll be live also doing coaching with a student. And at the end of this video, I'm going to announce how you can be this Wednesday's coaching student. If you want to come on here, I will coach you live, give you expert advice on Wednesday. But we're going to be here every Monday, every Wednesday, live action at 5 p.m. So make sure you guys, if this is your first time, subscribe. Hit the like button. Turn on live notifications so you always get notified when I am live action. Okay, you guys ready? All right. So I applied. Again, we have to recognize when you do the right things and you prepare for success, when you become an expert, when you become highly knowledgeable even in your goals, and you guys all should do this for all your goals. If something really means something to you, then act like it and become proficient in it. Understand the nuts and bolts of it. I myself, it meant a lot to me to become this doctor, right? To become the first doctor in my family. And so I invested significant amounts of time in learning exactly what it took to get into medical school, exactly what top medicals were looking for. And then I looked at ways to do it more efficiently and to exceed their expectations. And so because I did this as a pre-med, my confidence going into the application cycle was very, very high. And because of that, I didn't apply to a whole lot of schools. I'm from California, so I applied to mostly California schools. I threw in some Ivy League schools, and then I threw in some Boston schools because I actually like Boston despite the cold. It's highly academic. I like nerds, and so Boston's a nerd city. And so I was like, oh, that'd be cool. Go hang out there. I didn't really think that through. I don't like the snow. But I did that. I applied to Boston schools. So I applied to a very small number of schools. Of all the schools I applied to, I got interview invites to every school I filled out a secondary to, except for one, and they rejected me flat out, and that was UCSF. You guys have all heard that story. Tears. UCSF rejected me. They didn't want me. Oh, it hurt my heart deep. It was actually the first thing I heard. I sent my application in and immediately got a rejection letter back that said, "You idiot. How could you ever think UCSF would want you?" And they rejected me flat out. But outside of that, every secondary that I received, and I actually filled out because I got a bunch of secondaries, and then I was like, nah, I'm kind of over it, and didn't fill them out. But every secondary I sent in, I got an interview invite for. And then of those I got interview invites, it was roughly, we'll call it 10 schools. I can't remember the exact number. Maybe 10 schools, something like that, interview invites. Of those schools, I actually refused interview invites at a couple. And the reason I did, I got very lucky. And this is the beauty of applying early, right, and applying strong, is that if you do that, your application advances through the rungs really, really fast. So I actually submitted my primaries. As soon as I started getting secondaries back, I was submitting secondaries, and I had my first interview invites early in August. Like, they were sending them out, and they were scheduled for September and October. So one of the first schools I interviewed at was actually Northwestern in Chicago. So I filled out Northwestern because I had known someone who had gone there, was at Stanford, was at UC Irvine with me and raved about Northwestern's medical training. And so I added that to my list. Also, their school colors are purple. And as you guys know, the greatest team and franchise on the planet is purple and gold. These Lakers recognize we're going to be great again this year. Montrezl Harrell. And so I was with that. I was with that Northwestern Wildcat purple. I was ready for that. So I applied to Northwestern. Chicago's a cool city. And so I went, and in terms of talking about interview strategy and scheduling interviews, we're going to talk about this, but one of the strategies you guys want to do is that you want to schedule sort of your lower tier school, one of your lower tier, like not most favorite schools, up front. Why? Because then it gives you like a dress rehearsal. It's like preseason before the actual season. Speaking of, my Lakers start preseason in just a couple weeks. I'm just saying, throwing it out there. I want to check in and watch that. But it's a warm up for you to be ready for the interviews you really, really care about. And so even though I really like Northwestern, I was like, ooh, it's Chicago. I'm not from there. So let me go ahead and schedule that one early. And that was my very first interview. I interviewed there. I felt like I did an amazing job. I was a little bit nervous, but I felt like I did really, really well, right? And that was the purpose of throwing a kind of a throwaway one in first, because I could be a little nervous and be a little off my game, and it's okay. Despite being off my game, I was accepted to Northwestern a couple weeks later. So I had my first acceptance in September of my application year. And so because I had an early acceptance, and Northwestern at the time was a top 20 school, it was a highly recognized academic place, right? Their curriculum seemed amazing when I was there. They had lots of black people in their medical school, which I was with. I like to see color and diversity, right? Things that matter to me. It was in a city. I like that. So I felt very good about that acceptance. So then what I did was I looked at my list of schools and I said, well, wait a minute. Yes, you're inviting me for an interview, or yes, I'm getting I have a secondary to fill out for you, but would I rather go to this school or would I rather go to Northwestern? And for every school that I didn't want to go to over Northwestern, I then refused. Said, oh, thank you very much for the interview invite. I don't want to go. Okay. And then the remainder of the schools was like the UCs and then Ivy League schools. That's basically the only place I interviewed at. I interviewed Northwestern, UCs, and then Ivy League schools. And so went to the rest of these interviews. I got accepted everywhere that I interviewed, except for the places that I withdrew. And one of the big places that I withdrew immediately, and you're like, wait, this is crazy. I already had an acceptance, so I was weighing it that way. And one of the schools I was on the fence about was USC, right? I love Trojans football, but I didn't love the medical school. So when I interviewed at USC, do you guys want to hear the story? I don't know if this is probably people say spilling the tea. Is this too much to tell you why I withdrew my application immediately after I interviewed at USC? Should I tell you guys? I gotta really think strongly if I should. This is sensitive information. I don't know if UC wants you guys to know this. I actually called from the parking structure at USC. Maria said, never consider color as a factor in making an application list. And Maria, you got to consider these things. You guys have to remember, you're going to be an alumnus of this university. You're going to have to wear their colors for forever. Do you think I'd ever go to a school that's colors are green? No, guys. I can't be associated with the Celtics. Blue and red? Clippers? No. Purple and gold get you on the list. Recognize. You got to look good. You guys see me wear my Stanford sweatshirt game is strong, right? Okay, so here's what happened at USC. People say spill the tea. Okay, so I went to USC. I went to my USC interview, And I was excited about it, right? USC's a well-known school, great school. I love their football program. I had a bunch of buddies who've gone to USC for undergrad, for graduate school. And so I was very excited to be there. It's down the street from my house, right in LA. I'm from Orange County. And so I go to this interview, and we get to interview day. And the first thing that happens is they don't have breakfast. Breakfast is running late. I'm like, well, that's weird. They have like little bars for us to snack on. I'm like, bars? Shoot, I don't come for bars. I want full-blown, at least a continental breakfast. But you can't serve me a granola bar and tell me everything's going to be all right. So that happened. Give us breakfast. And then from moment one of the interview day, that set the tone, right? We talk about first impressions, and we'll talk about how to make a great first impression later on in this series. But the very first thing that happens is that they give us a granola bar. And then at check-in, they gave us a folder, and the folders were kind of mixed matched, all these different papers in it. The interview day seemed very thrown together and very disorganized. And if you guys know anything about me, right, and how I got into medical school, I'm very into being organized. I'm very meticulous. I'm very, that's why I do anesthesia. I like planning things out. And so when I saw the day was disorganized, that was an immediate turnoff to me. Then I go to meet my interviewer, and I have to go find my interviewer's office, and I go find this office, and as I'm walking through their hospital, and I'm walking through their doctor's offices, the carpet is like this ugly, horrible, like 1980s. It reminded me of like elementary school, like that brown, like flame retardant, like crayon paint resistant carpet. You guys know what I'm talking about? Anybody ever have that in their school? Right? That really cheap, like 80s, like you might get murdered in this hallway type carpet. No? Who's seen Silence of the Lambs? Do you remember he had the van, and he was like, "Yes, I need just some help getting this in the van. Help me with my sofa." And then she gets in there, and then he knocks the girl in there, and he cuts her skin off. Okay, the inside of that carpet, the inside of that van had this brown carpet. So I think that they got the idea from walking through USC's medical offices, saw this brown carpet, and they're like, "Man, this looks like a straight up murder scene. Let's put this in Silence of the Lambs, and let's skin girls on this brown carpet." That's what it looked like to me. Anyway, so I go to this office. It's dank in there. It's like, ugh, it was gross. It was like a horror movie. And I love horror movies, but this was terrible. It's not real life. And I go to this person's office. I knock on the door, and no one answers. I knock on the door. No one answers. I'm like, what the heck's going on? I don't have a contact number to call or anything. So then I find, like, in the neighboring office, someone is there. I'm like, hey, do you know if Dr. So-and-so is here? They're like, oh, no, I haven't seen him, whatever. So I'm standing here waiting at this office. I wait for like maybe 20-something minutes. So when I leave, I go back to the main office. I'm like, hey, I went to my interviewer's place. They're not there. And they're like, oh, let us call around and see. And they're like, oh, we can't get a hold of them right now. They must be busy, clinically or whatever. Just go wait outside the office. Well, I end up waiting almost an hour. And I guess this is kind of diva-ish. Is this kind of diva-ish? But I waited like an hour, and I get there, and this person acts so flippant, like zero regard for me being there, and treated me, I felt, like I was, almost like he was belittling me, like a hierarchy. And like some of the questions he asked led me to believe that he thought that medical should be this hierarchical thing. And I'm like, no, I'm not with that, because I don't believe in formal for formal's sake. I believe this is a community, and if you are going to be my advisor, if you're going to be someone who I'm working with as a faculty member, yes, I respect you. You're Dr. So-and-so, and I'm just Andre. But at the same time, I want you to treat me like I was your kid, like I was your family friend, like you actually would have some empathy for me. And that's not the vibe I got from this person. As a result, right, we go to the interview, and I'm turned off. The other thing that turned me off, this is probably, again, we go back to Lakers, that this person was a Clipper fan. And as you guys have heard me say before, if you're a Clipper fan, something is wrong with you psychologically. Because that means you're attracted to losers, right? You want to be attracted to winners, Lakers. And so that happened, the bad interview, the carpet, the disorganization, the granola bar. I'm a big man. You got to feed me. You got to feed me. Don't play, who? Shannon knows. Give me a granola bar. That's divorce, grounds for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, granola bar, okay? So I left the interview. I actually didn't even go check back in. I didn't even go check back in at the office. I actually went straight to my car in the parking garage. I called and I said, hey, listen. And it was so funny. Actually, let me tell you how it really went. This is how you know you're broke, okay? Where the little amounts of money piss you off. I go back to my car and I was like, man, should I withdraw? Should I withdraw? Should I withdraw? And I'm sitting there. And as I'm sitting there, someone comes and taps on the window. And I'm like, oh, hey, there's a security guard. The security guard's like, hey, you don't have a parking permit displayed. I'm like, oh, it's right here. I hadn't put the little receipt thing up. And so I grab it. I'm like, oh, here it is. He's like, okay, great. So you'll pay on your way out. I'm like, is it not free for a couple hours? Like, well, how long have you been here? And of course I had been here over the length of time. Turns out USC didn't even validate for my interview. So now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm real upset that I had to wait an hour. I got a granola bar. He was disregarding me. He liked the Clippers. I got to pay for parking. Shoot. And so I literally sat there and I called them. And I was like, hey, I was just actually in your office. It was the woman who answered the phone. I was like, I just wanted to let you guys know that I want to be withdrawing my application for consideration. I thank you guys very much for inviting me for an interview, but I just think it's not a fit. And I just want to make sure someone else has an opportunity to go to this fine school. And I hung the phone up. So I was very respectful, but I withdrew my consideration right that moment from the parking garage. And again, why could I do that? How could I do that? Does that sound crazy to you guys? Would you guys ever turn down? Would you make people would you make people reject you? Or would you just say, nah, I'm not into it? You can't trust them. You can't trust Clippers fans. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong, right? And so there's a lot of things that were happening. And I know that sounds, I don't say this to sound diva-ish, but I want you guys to recognize, why am I able, right, at a USC interview to say, no, I'm not even interested in your school? How can I say that? Well, yes, I knew my worth, but also I had an acceptance already, right? So it's like a bird in the hand, two in the bush. If I already have an acceptance, I don't have to be as thirsty. I don't have to be as desperate, because I know now there's a standard, there's a bar that I'm comparing everything to. And when I really sat there and asked myself, would I rather be here? When I look at how I was treated, I was embraced at Northwestern. People were hugging me. I'm like, oh, you guys know, everybody who's met me, you know I love to hug. So when people hug me, that's something warm in my heart. And the coldness I felt at USC just didn't appeal to me. So I already had an acceptance, so I could do that. And so for you guys, right, and this is something that happens in the application process to kind of sidetrack. Can we sidetrack for a second? Is everybody still with me? I know we're at 26 minutes. I try to keep these things short. But are you guys still with me? Can we sidetrack for a second, talk about application for a second? Are we learning? Exactly, Night Shock. They catfished me. Are we still learning? People let me know. Like the video right now if we are still learning. Are we still learning? Are we still feeling? Are we still learning? Okay, we're still learning. Okay, good. So I can keep talking? Or should I just be quiet? You're like, how can this be a multi-part series? He's talked for 30 minutes. Okay, never not learning. Okay, so with the application, especially this cycle, how many of you guys are still waiting for your first interview invite? How many of you guys still are getting secondaries that are rolling in? With this cycle, and we're going to break it down and give you guys some information on this later this week, but this cycle, man, is all over the place. As you guys may have seen, initially they thought applications were going to be up like 14% this cycle. And now at latest like update, applications are up something close to 25-30% this cycle. Tons of applications. You couple that with people working from home, right? All the businesses you've been frequenting, how great is the service? Not that great, right? Working from home messes things up. So now you have people working from home, you have tons of applications, and so this application cycle is in disarray and it's delayed. So don't freak out. You still have hope. Unlike typical cycles, you're like, ooh, late November, haven't heard back, ooh, it's trouble. This cycle, don't sweat it. Stay the course, okay? But with that being said, some of you guys are still getting secondaries, or some of you guys are getting interviews, and you think you have to do everything, and you're struggling to do everything. Standards. If you have a good amount of interview invites, if you filled out a bunch of secondaries, why waste time? Like people right now are adding schools to their list. If you wouldn't go to that school over schools that you've been invited for an interview, why are you taking time to fill out that secondary? To stress your brain, to take time out. Why would you stress yourself by going here, and this year, right, you're doing Zoom interviews, so it's not as bad. But my point is set a standard point of comparison. Just to apply, to throw your net out there if you would be miserable at a school, I don't know if you should do that. So just something to think about as you go through your application, through your interviews, is put your energy at your top schools. So you shouldn't just be filling out secondaries willy-nilly. You should be like, okay, well, this school I like more than this school, or I think I do, and so I should focus on this secondary first and then get to that secondary, right? Okay. So anyway, I rejected USC because I already had Northwestern in the bag, and I liked that school better. I went on to get accepted everywhere else. And then ultimately, like I said, I chose Stanford, and it came down to Stanford, an Ivy League school. And I liked UCLA, but that was another situation where when I went for UCLA second look, I didn't like the vibe I got from there. And for me, it's like with me and my students, I like being very casual. I like being like a family, like really, really family oriented, right? So my students can work in my house. Like, I like that feeling. I like knowing people by name. I like that people want to get to know me by name. I like when people put their hands on me, right? I like to be hugged. That sounded weird. I like people put their hands on me. I like to be hugged. And so I wanted an environment where I felt like I was going to be treated like, okay, we're one tight-knit unit in whatever color we wear. That's us. And so I felt that way. That's why I became a Stanford tree, as my wife calls them, the Stanford trees, and chose Stanford. But as you go through the interview process, like I said, if you get 3 interviews, there should be 3 acceptances. Every school I interviewed at that I wanted to get into, I got into. And it was simply because I prepared for the interview in such a way. And if you guys, right, want to prepare for your interview, what should you do? Get into my interview course, because I'll show you exactly what to do to control the interview so you can go in confident and you can make that interview into an acceptance. Yes? Okay? But that's the long and short of it, guys, is that if you get an interview invite, man, you got a great shot at getting in. Be confident in it. Believe in it, right? Don't burn yourself out by doing 50,000 secondaries, 50,000 interviews. Focus in on the schools that you really care about. Focus in on where you really want to be, because you would hate to mess up, right? And I've had this happen where students send me these messages, right? And these are my students, and I'm mad at them because they had a school they really wanted to go to. And they'll literally say, oh, it didn't go great today. I'm like, well, what do you mean it didn't go great today? We prepared for this. And they're like, oh, well, I was a little tired from this and this and everything. I'm like, what? You were too tired filling out secondaries to perform my interview day. That's not what we want to do. So we prepare, and then we also have to put ourselves in a position to make sure that we're ready. Someone said ask for discounts. How come everybody always wants a discount? Why can't we just say, hey, yes, I'm going to pay full price for the course. You guys want a discount? Okay, fine. We'll do a flash discount. I'll put a discount in the box below after we finish this live today. So if you're watching this on replay, there's a discount box or a discount in the box below. You guys can check that out. I also encourage you guys, I have lots of videos on my channel about med school interview. And like this said, this whole month, we're doing med school interview. Was this helpful to you guys today? If this is helpful to you, make sure you like the video right now. Let me know it was helpful to you, right? And then come back next Monday. We're going to hit it again. So lots of videos, and I might be doing some lives randomly this week. I have a lot of interview stuff I just want to talk about. So there's going to be a lot more lives. I'm on here. We're going to be very active. So make sure you guys take the time. Subscribe and turn on live notifications so you know when we're live. Actually, we got a good number of people on here live. I like it. So we get some interaction. Let's take a second. We'll do 5 minutes of questions related to the interview. Let's focus on that and things about the interview. It says we are broke premeds. We're all broke premeds. I just told you how I was upset at the school for making me pay for parking. But you guys are a bit like, I don't know. I guess when you, it's all relative, right? But like stuff like that'll make you not like. Have you guys ever been? This is how you know you're broke. When you make your social decisions based off of your wallet, you're like, ooh, I can't go there because then I'll be that much gas, that much to park, and then ooh, they have a 2-drink minimum. Ooh, can't take that ride, right? How many of you guys have been there? Oh my gosh. That's when you're super broke, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. Like, ooh, I'd love to go, but my tank is almost empty, and I need the rest of that gas to get to class. I can't afford to fill up this week. Spencer, I didn't see your question about ethical withdrawal. Oh yeah, should we call it Cyber Monday? Sally, how are you? The return of Courtney Doyle. Where you been? Yeah, Armand, those late night parties between people interviewing. Yes, I said I'll post a discount, guys. I'll post a discount link in the box after this. I'm reading comments right now. I apologize for the silence. Okay, let's talk about Aminas Question, because that's actually related. It's not a question, it's more of a statement. But I think that's related to this. and then we'll get to some other questions. But the Aminas statement said one school I applied to said they'll only be able to interview 10% of applicants this year. So crazy. And if you guys think that's a low number, think about the numbers I just gave you guys about how many people are getting interviewed this, like in the traditional year, right? When you get 10,000 applications, if you interview 500, that's only 5%. If it's 8,000 students and you interview 500, that's still less than 10%. So while 10% sounds crazy, 10% is about the going rate because you're going to get thousands of applications and you're going to interview hundreds of students. So 10% is actually not that low of a number. During this cycle, what you're going to see, it's an oblong cycle in the sense that schools are having to do non-traditional things this cycle to be able to handle the cycle. They're bringing in new reviewers. They're doing Zoom interviews. And so with Zoom interviews, I think it's interesting, right? I can't say for certain what the word is on this. And from people that I'm talking to, it kind of cuts both ways. And that some schools are saying, well, listen, since we're doing Zoom interviews, we have the opportunity this year to actually interview more candidates because we don't have to host them for a whole day. We can set them up with a Zoom interview and do that. Other schools are saying, well, listen, the Zoom interview is complicated enough. It's exhausting enough. So instead of doing more interviews, what we're going to do is actually do more close evaluation of the application. And then we're going to do fewer interviews. And so we're going to be interviewing less. So I think it cuts both ways. So it's hard to say this cycle one way or the other way if more people are going to be in interviews or if more people are going to be considered closely up front and therefore increasing your chances maybe of getting that interview invite. Either way, I think like through all this stuff and what you guys are going to hear me talk about throughout this series is that at every step of the game, preparation. At every step of the game, excellence, and standing out. So as you guys go to apply, ask yourself, are you a stellar candidate? Right? I see a lot of people ducking and dodging the application competition. Don't worry about other people. Don't worry about what people say on forums. Worry about you. Have you optimized everything you can do? Have you put yourself in, and if we are all honest, if we're all honest with ourselves about what it takes to get into medical school, then we can be honest and we can be truthful about whether we are competitive or not. But so many students are not competitive, for medical school, and they lie to themselves and they act shocked when they don't get in. Yeah? Okay. So, we've been on here long enough, 36 minutes. We're going to be back. Lots of lives, guys. I want to come on here. I want to make sure I'm helping you guys get through. Not only was it a difficult time in COVID, but just, I'm old now. Can I say I'm old? I just had a birthday last week and I am old. And now as I'm old, I look back on what it was going through my pre-med journey, and it was lonely at points. It was early on. It was very overwhelming. And I don't want that for you guys. So I want to make sure that you guys have a place where you can come and we're gonna talk about things, and we're gonna be real, and we're gonna be transparent, and we're not gonna blow smoke, and we're just gonna be honest about it. And I hope today that and I have to watch this because when you're excellent, it's hard, especially when you're excellent and you come from a place where you were the worst. Because I used to be the worst. I was the worst student. I was the worst pre-med, and I was told as such. But when you become excellent, it's then hard to be humble about it. I'm the first one to admit I'm not a humble person. I'm not. I'm an appropriately confident person, which means I have an abundance of confidence because I have an abundance of excellence within me. But I've earned this excellence. And for all of you guys out there, as you go through this cycle, as we're going to learn about interviewing, remember, on interview day, you have the ability to be great. You have the ability to turn that interview into acceptance. And it starts with confidence, and it starts with being prepared. And if you prepare, if you put the work in, if you're ready, right? If you do things we're going to talk about in this series, then you can go in confident. And it's not being cocky, it's just being confident. It's being appropriate. Be confident and then get your acceptance. So I want you guys to develop. I want you guys to be more confident than I am. Can we shoot for that as a goal? Can we say that? Can we get to that point where you guys are? I want people on here spewing their confidence at me, making me feel like, dang, you need to settle down. You need to put a little rein them horses in a little bit, right? You're a little crazy. That's what you guys wanted to be. All right, guys. I hope this was helpful to people. This is helpful to you guys. Make sure, like I said, come back. I'm going to be bringing here. I don't want to talk to myself, right? I just had a long day. You hear my kids crying in the background. My life's in shambles. Don't make me get on here for no reason. Come back, join us. As always, I appreciate you guys. My website's thestudydoc.com. You guys want to check out, I got lots of courses, lots of coaching programs, lots of trainings on there. My med school interview course. People ask me on here. You guys hit me up for a discount every time we're on here. But I'll put a flash, a couple hours. I'll put a flash discount for my med school interview in the box below right after this. So if you guys want a discount on the med school interview course, look in the description box below after I get done with this video. I'll put a link there. It'll be a very short-lived link because my courses are already super affordable already, right? Because I want to make things accessible to you guys. But I'll put a quick link in the box below, and you guys can take advantage of that and get informed about the interview process, all right? Yes, hashtag confidence. I like to see that. All right. It was fun tonight, guys. I appreciate you guys. I apologize for me being late. You know what? You guys ever have a flash? Like I said, I'm old now. I was harsh about that USC doctor being late, but maybe he did have clinical commitments. Maybe he wanted to be there on time. He just couldn't. And I judged him harshly. You live and you learn, I guess. This is no offense to USC. I hope no one at USC is offended. I interviewed probably about 43 years ago for medical school, so maybe their interview day is different. This is no affront to anyone. I had a terrible interview day experience. And just like, a student can have a bad interview day, and a school can be like, man, that person's a train wreck. A school can have an off day, but they were definitely off. Somebody was on vacation that week who needed to be there. And so I don't want anybody to be offended by this, but this is just the truth and the reality. My wife's calling me, telling me I'm in trouble. I gotta go manage these kids. Nina, don't put me in that category. I'm always on time. All right, everyone, have a great night. I appreciate you guys. Dr. Pinesett here. I am out. Make sure you guys check me out on social media, across social media. I'm at TheStudyDoc. Join, guys. Our student group is free to join. Cult of Greatness group on Facebook. Join us on that group. And I'll see you guys next week. Later.